Welcome to the higher self versus ego. When we talk about our higher self, we are talking about connection to source, connection to our intuition, connection to the universe. And all the energy is right here inside of us. It is where we go inside first to connect, and then we go outside to seek to connect with others, to share love and joy, to expand out, and to really live out our full potential. Whatever it is that we are here to do, our purpose in life, which is another way of saying that is your Dharma, is connected to your higher self. Right? Why did you come to this planet? What is it that you are here to actually do? And really giving a good look at, is your career the very thing that you are connected to really actually be here to do? Are you here to teach physical education to kids? Are you here to build and to grow and to be an architect and make advancements in the world? Like, what is it that you're actually doing in the world? And is it connected to your higher Dharma, to your true self and the meaning of which you chose to come here? And if the answer is no, it's not wrong or bad. It just means, well, do you feel fulfilled as a human? Do you feel like you would like to maybe have a hobby that is in alignment with your higher self and your Dharma? Right? So it doesn't have to be necessarily your career. It could just be something that you choose to do at some point in your life on the side. But what's important is that you have a zest for life and that you wake up every morning loving the day, whether it's a Monday or a Friday or a Sunday, that when you go to bed at night, that you are not dreading the next day, that you're actually going to bed feeling complete, feeling full in life. And if that's happening for you, fantastic. If it's not happening for you, let's look at the difference. And what comes in and intervenes with the higher self is the ego, okay? But focusing on the higher self first, it is that of which we already are, and it speaks through the heart, okay? So when we are using our heart to connect with others and just to communicate all things us goes through the heart, life is that much more enjoyable and that much more lovely. Okay, so other things that the higher self does is that it speaks what is, it speaks the truth, it speaks in authenticity. So you never have to worry about what you're going to say when you're speaking the truth and you're speaking from your heart. It's just coming out, whatever comes out of your mouth. If you've cleared out any negative emotions or limiting beliefs, if you cleared all that out, then it's just sort of like a free pathway to speak your truth when you speak to people. And then you're going to have more authentic connections all the way around. So it also follows your intuition, which is something that we talked about earlier. Your higher self has that intuition, that knowing, that or that feeling that you get. That's your inner compass, and that's there to guide you. So really just be aware that that's always there for you. It's like the fireplace, the burning embers in the bottom of a fireplace. That's what it's like in you. It's this like source, this source that's always, always on. It's never going to be distinguished until you leave this body form. And then it's still on, right? It's still moving forward in the different dimensions. So your higher self tends to be accepting and empathetic, meaning that it gives grace and it sees the struggles that other people are going through, and it has empathy and it has compassion, okay, for other people and for yourself. So it doesn't always have to be like hardened and judgmental. It's actually the opposite of that. It's accepting, it's loving, it's accepting and empathetic. So the other thing the higher self does is it's always in the present state. And that means that, and we talked about this a little bit earlier, when you're in your present state, you're actually breathing in what's happening now and breathing out through now. So it's a breath in and a breath out in this now. And then the very next breath in and breath out is another present state. So when we are in our higher self, it keeps you grounded and it keeps you feeling very present. You're not off spinning in your head about what's happening in the future, what could happen in the future, what might happen in the future, what might not happen in the future, right? All of that is the ego trying to protect you, and we'll talk about ego in a moment. And we're not in our past thinking about the mistakes we've made or what we could have said, or we should have done this. The should have, could have's, would have's go out the door, right? No longer do you need to use the words I should have, I could have, or I would have. It's all about being present and how you are showing up. How are you being, not doing? How are you being in the world right now, presently? The higher self takes accountability and responsibility for their actions. That means that when you have a goal and you set yourself this goal, even if it's a goal for today to be positive, or it's a goal for next week to, journal for 5 days or 7 days over the next week, when you are doing that and you set a goal, the higher self keeps you accountable for that. It says to you in a beautiful, positive way, in loving and supportive way, are you doing the thing of which you said you are doing? Do you have integrity around what you said you want to do? And the higher self has integrity and accountability, and it takes responsibility. So when you are going through life, there is such a thing as ignoring, like just doing things and then not worrying about how it affects other people or how it affects you, right? Being in effect, or you're at the cause and effect thing again, and you are taking responsibility for every single thing in your life. Like, so say, my children want, they need to have their clothes washed. In order to get that done, they have to set that in motion. They have to be responsible or accountable for getting their clothes in the washer, or asking me for assistance, or just putting it into motion, right? That's being responsible for having clean clothes. Or they can just wake up in the morning and then get angry over the fact that they don't have clean clothes. And really, at the end of the day, it's on them to kind of set that in motion. Okay, my kids are a little bit older. It's not like they're toddlers. That would be a different story. Okay, so the higher self also has an abundant mindset, which is why we've been talking about abundance this entire time. The higher self actually believes that abundance is possible, and it wants abundance, and it wants to align with abundance because it knows that it's true and it's there. So everything is already there in the universe. Like, all the abundance is already there. It's just a matter of, can we raise ourselves vibrationally to be in alignment with what's already there for us? And when we're in our higher self, we're allowing ourselves to be in vibrational continuity with the universe, and then the things we want come to us. The higher self sees lessons in everything. It sees that events happen, and there's what we make it mean, and what we made it mean in the past is not necessarily true. We talked about that in the last lesson, but it looks at, what do I want instead out of this? So what we do in the timeline therapy is we look at, what are the learnings? Like, what can we learn from this that can give us an empowered state to create life the way that we want, as opposed to being caught up in the story that we were telling ourselves this whole time about that event. So the higher self keeps us accountable and teaches us that there's lessons in everything. Finally, the higher self is grateful and joyous. And that's gratefulness and being in appreciation and just being joyous is something that, it's what you feel when you're in your higher self. You're always in a high vibe and you're feeling joyous all the time and just feeling bliss. No matter what comes your way, you're able to get through it in a high state. Now, ego, on the other hand, ego is there to come in and it wants to serve you. Okay, so being friendly with your ego is actually really important. We don't ever want to say to our ego, I don't like you, get away from me, scat, get away, because then we're actually rejecting parts of ourselves. So the ego came into effect a long, long time ago when we were in that impressionable age. Picture a little girl or a little boy dressed up in their finest outfit, and they're a toddler, and their caregiver says to them, don't go outside and get dirty, but the caregiver is sending the toddler outside and saying, don't get dirty. They're not in alignment. The toddler can't help but to go get dirty. They're curious. They're going to go touch things to learn. That's how toddlers learn. They're going to go play and they're going to be free. Okay, that's the key, is they're being free. And then they're probably going to fall or sit or touch something that's going to get their outfit dirty. Now, they're too young to realize that this is not a personal attack on them when their caregiver sees them and says, oh my goodness, you're such a bad boy or such a bad girl. What did you do? I told you not to do this. You don't listen to me ever. All of a sudden, the toddler in the free state that they were in closes down, and there's an ego that's developed now. It's what you could call even a multiple personality. Another personality is now developed because it's not feeling free enough to be that higher self, right? That higher self was just extinguished by the caregiver and the caregiver's views and the caregiver's decisions, and the caregiver might have some emotions around the fact that that toddler just got dirt on their clothes, right? And so the ego comes out and it protects the child. It says, okay, remember this event. We're going to store this away. We're going to remember this event. And, anytime we put on new clothes, I'm going to remind you that, this was a scary event. And then it's really a false perception of reality because the child actually internalizes that too. The subconscious makes everything personal. The ego is there now to protect the child from being hurt again. And it actually puts on like a little ego mask. Now fast forward to the next time, okay, that the child is put in the nice clothes and the caregiver says, go play. Probably the same exact thing will happen. Go play, but don't get messed up. And I told you, remember last time? And I told you, you were very bad last time. So this could actually happen. The ego is going to come out and it's going to be sort of this false like personality. And the little child is going to like sort of be like with this, you can almost see the ego on people's faces because you realize like that it distorts their personality and it doesn't, you can see like what's going on there, that they don't seem like their true self. They don't seem happy. No, because they have the mask of the ego that's protecting them. So the ego is there to protect you. However, it's also blocking you from your higher self. It has distrust. It's actually all the things that we just talked about the higher self. The ego is the exact opposite. It makes decisions based on fear and lack and scarcity and distrust and blaming and shaming when you do something wrong. That's where the voice comes in and says you're not good enough because it takes everything personally. Okay. And so it's concerned with being separate and individualized. So when we're in that state of protection, we're going to naturally pull away from people because it's scary. Like the events that happen maybe didn't feel so good. What makes us sort of separate and pull away and want to be individual as opposed to the higher self wants us to connect and grow and love and nurture our higher self. The ego wants to pull us away and have us feeling separate. Okay, for protection. It tends to be judgmental, and that's the opposite of accepting. It's judgy. It's looking at other people. And when you're not feeling good enough, when you're not in higher self and you're in ego all the time, and you're not feeling good enough, even as a young child, you can go into a new classroom or into a new activity like a new gymnastics or piano lessons, and you could actually be feeling very not good enough or judging yourself. And then the ego is going to have you judging other people. I don't like those people. They're wearing this clothes. I don't like them. I don't like my piano teacher. I don't like gymnastics. And it's going to separate you from feeling good and from connecting and from living your most vibrant life. Okay. So it dwells in the past. The ego is all about thinking about the past, and because it wants to keep the negative things alive so that you are on high alert. Sometimes when we're feeling like fight or we're feeling fright and we're feeling like on guard, it's the ego saying, don't forget, this is a high alert situation that you're going into. Remember how you felt, and it keeps you living in the past. And where we want to live is in the present. Okay, so it will not allow you to live in the present because it wants you to be in the past, reliving, regurgitating all of the past and what happened. And we don't need that. That's not conducive to happiness. It lives in the victim mentality. So when we are in an ego state, we are essentially living in a state of feeling sorry for ourselves or pointing the finger that everything that's happening to me is out there. This person is doing this to me. This person's doing that to me. This event happened to me. Look at all the things that are happening to me. I can't help myself. And actually, if we take out the word to and put in the word for, this is happening for me. This person just said this for me to learn something new, to get empowered. Okay, so when we change it from this is happening to me and I'm a victim of my circumstances, all right, to this is happening for me and I can actually control what's going on in my life, and we've been talking about that in depth, then we can start to change our reality. All right, it's that simple. We get to transform our life in an empowering way by not being a victim and letting go of ego and realizing that that's not your true higher self talking, that's your ego self talking. And ego actually complains a lot. So whenever the ego is feeling insecure, it's going to complain, it's going to find the negative in all things. It's going to make you aware of what's not going right in your world. So, really getting clear on when you are being in ego and when you can be in your highest self, and noticing that there's a difference there. And in order to transform your life, allowing the ego to dissipate. And we're going to do some exercises that are going to separate you from your ego and transform all of your negative, all of your ego self, all of those faces and all of those masks, that we want them to essentially integrate back into your highest self. Say you have several masks to protect you that you've developed over the lifetime, several personalities. We are able to actually integrate them back into our higher self so that we are no longer fighting against ourself. Our higher self is not fighting with our ego self, right? And when that's happening, when there's a fight between the two of them, both the higher self and the ego self want the highest good intention for us, but they're both going at it in a different way. The ego is harming us. The higher self is bringing us higher. And when I say the ego is harming us, it actually thinks it's protecting us, but it's actually doing damage to our body. So we're going to start getting into how all of these negative emotions and limiting beliefs actually affect our body, and how when you are living in the ego state, like I said, it wants to protect you, but it's bringing on dis-ease to the body. So this is the end of this lesson, and I hope that you enjoyed, and I'll see you in the next lesson.